Feeling a little bit balmy here.
Really?
Feeling a little bit warm.
A bit moist?
Yes, I'm a little clingy. I'm a little
exciting.
dewy.
You're a bit shiny, Gary.
Yes, it's because I'm so excited. Are you guys ready to get started here, folks?
You're so excited.
I got 1701. That's 501 for our folks back in the United States who don't understand military time. Actually, there's probably other people besides the United States who don't understand military time. I find it's less ambiguous, the whole 17 versus 5. Anyway, we are ready to kick things off. Thanks for coming tonight, guys. It's Tuesday night, and we are ready to do the filter one more time. It's the filter number 92, and it's called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer digital cash system. Have you ever heard that before? That is the title of the Bitcoin white paper, and it's appropriate because there is all kinds of things going on around this topic of cash. We're going to talk about cash. We're going to talk about banks, the Federal Reserve, interest rates. Maybe that sounds boring, but we're going to make it quite interesting. I think it has an effect on all of us, and it's all related to why Satoshi created the white paper and the original Bitcoin implementation. So we are going to bring it all together. Let me kick things off here for our folks at home. They can see what we're seeing. Just a moment. All right. Now, today's episode is inspired by the show Mr. Robot. There's been a lot of talk on the message board about Mr. Robot and how it's coming dangerously close to representing real life issues. I always say, like, we don't need fiction because we got Bitcoin. Bitcoin is so outrageous. Like, if they made a show about it, you wouldn't believe it. But now this fictional account is taking the Bitcoin idea into the future, testing some of the ramifications of the Bitcoin idea, and adding a little bit of evil mustache twisting to keep it all interesting for us. And we're going to explore some of the topics that this show addresses. So,
A bit like Bitcoin for Star Trek for Bitcoin.
yeah. Only it's Mr. Robot, not Star Trek. But I don't know what you call.
That was ahead of its time.
Ah, right. Yes. I don't know what you're going to call Mr. Robot fanatics though, like Robies, robot routers, robot.
Bobbies.
F Society. All right. Okay, I'll buy that. All right. Let me see if I can get this thing working here. All right. This is Bitcoin filter number 92, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. We are coming to you live from Hubud, hubud.org. These guys are nice enough to give us a space to meet every week. So if you find yourself in Bali, I hope you'll join us in person. And you can find information about them at hubud.org. When we're not together in person, we are hanging out online on our Facebook group. And people post stories that we then talk about when we get together in person. So you can participate in an online conversation, and then when we get together in person, we can debate, argue, have fun talking about all the stuff that people post. So check out our Facebook group. Almost 1,000 members in the Facebook group now. That'll be a fun day when we're about 950, something like that. We've also got something going on Twitter. Let me just refresh this here. Ooh, the filter live is starting right now, inspired by Mr. Robot. See, you got to check Twitter. You never know what the latest news is. Check out Twitter, hashtag Bitcoins in Bali. We've got a little bit of conversation happening on Twitter. And last but not least, we've got our own website. I know that's so 90s to have your own website. Instead of Facebook and Instagram, like, there's an actual website for us. It's called bitcoinsinbali.org. You type that into a browser, and then the page comes up. There's no app. There's not an app. It's just a website. I know that's hard for some people to get their head around. Check out bitcoinsinbali.org. That's where we also post some of our news, and we also host the registration for our Bitcoin 101. We've got Bitcoin 101 happening this Saturday, 10 a.m. sharp, in this very room that we're sitting in right now. I know everybody in here is already a Bitcoin expert, but I know you know some non-expert Bitcoin people that you can send to the Bitcoin 101 this Saturday at 10 a.m. Let us know you're coming. There's a registration down here at the bottom. We've only got room for about 12 to 15 people. So let us know you're coming by hitting the registration button. All right, why do we do Bitcoin 101? Well, we're trying to get a Bitcoin economy to take off here. It's a bit of a social experiment. We've got a Bitcoin economy that we track. This is a graph of the Bitcoin economy in transactions per day. So some days we have 17 transactions, and on other days we have 0 transactions. But the more Bitcoin 101s we do, we can see a market uptick in the number of transactions per day. And we're trying to create a community that spends a little bit of Bitcoin each day so that we get the economy moving. We want to see if we can't get this thing to take off. Obviously, there are many benefits to Bitcoin, but if it's not used by people as money, then it really doesn't live up to its potential. But the thing is, it's not useful until a lot of people use it, and until a lot of people use it, it's not useful. So we've got a bit of a chicken and the egg thing happening. We're trying to fix that here in Ubud. We're cutting edge. We're avant-garde. We're trying to make things happen. And Bitcoin 101 is part of that. We're trying to create more consumers. We're also trying to create more merchants. Working on that too. But slow and steady as she goes. The Bitcoin economy will make no wine before it's time. I think it'll happen. We just got to stick to it.
Where's Bitcoin take root?
Where has Bitcoin taken root? Well, I've been to a lot of places in the world checking out that possibility. I was just in the United States, in San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and San Diego. I spent some time down in Costa Rica. Earlier this year, I was in South Africa, in Durban, and Johannesburg, and Cape Town. And I have to say, I'm not just tooting our horn here, but we have something special, I think. I've heard that there's other pockets that are very active. I was just in contact with a developer that I met through basically looking at various projects on GitHub, and found some folks in Vancouver that are doing something very similar to what we're doing here. They created their own point of sale system for their merchants. They get together regularly. They've even created what they call a Bitcoin lair, where they get together every week. And they've also got a co-op as defined by Canadian law. I guess there's some laws around Canadian organizations that are co-ops. So really interesting project there. I hope that we'll be able to keep in contact with those guys, because really looking for other pockets that are doing something similar to what we're doing here. I know there's a big community in Austin, Texas as well. But to my knowledge, there's no one really kind of coordinating the efforts amongst all of those little pockets of activity. I don't know, I've reached out to some people, and every once in a while I'll get some emails as well. And I think it's a good thing to collaborate on. But so far, I think we're doing a good job in terms of creating an on-the-ground Bitcoin economy. This is one of the better places, one of the more active places, and I think it's beginning to be known as it. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. All right. So, in local news, anybody watching this DevCon 2? Any Ethereum fans? Even after the split, they're Ethereum fans? Okay, well, this is the premier developer conference for Ethereum. It's taking place as we speak, and it's in Shanghai. That's a picture of Shanghai. And this article is calling out the most interesting topics. Check out, you've got Vitalik, obviously. He's the superstar in the Ethereum world, but who's second on the list? Victor Tron. Wow. Oh, yeah, with his swap, swear, and swindle swarm incentivization. Hopefully we'll get to talk with Victor again sometime soon. I know he's got his hands full with the DevCon right now, but soon it will be over, and maybe we can get him on. Maybe he'll choose to come to Bali. I mean, he's already in the neighborhood. Or maybe we can get him online and we can have another online conversation, see what he's been up to. It's been about 6 months since we talked to him. But because this is going on in this part of the world, we've got a bit of a benefit, because another group of celebrities in the Ethereum world work for this company called Consensus. Consensus.net is an incubator for Ethereum projects. So basically they've got a bunch of Ethereum projects that they're promoting in order to show the capabilities of Ethereum, right? And I actually spoke to one of the guys from Consensus about a year ago about Gnosis, which is a prediction market based on Ethereum. But there's lots of other interesting things that these guys are promoting using Ethereum. Let me see if I can get a picture of George up here. There's George. Oh, that's a nice picture, huh? Sorry, George.
Say that.
Anyway, he will be here in Bali along with 100 other people from Consensus, and they are going to throw a little party on Sunday night. I have yet to build an event around this, but on Sunday night, we're all going to head over to the Amham retreat, where all of them are staying, and they've got some meeting facilities over there for us. And they're going to talk about some very interesting things. You've got a few projects they're going to present for us. You got the MetaMask, Ethereum in your browser, decentralization engineers and MetaMask developers. Aaron Davis and Dan Finley are going to talk. You've got trusted wine supply chains using Ethereum. That sounds really fascinating. The whole idea of provenance and title tracking, we talk about that stuff a lot, but these guys are getting down to brass tacks and actually doing it. Uport, a self-sovereign identity system. I'm very excited about this. You know, as much as we care about anonymity, I think we also care about our identity. You know, when we establish our identity in a community, we rely on that identity for a lot of things. You know, if you know me, you might let me borrow your scooter or loan me some money or cooperate in some way because you know me. But in an online world, you don't always know somebody, and the idea of identity is really tied up in the possibilities around blockchain. So I'm really excited to hear that talk. Ether Loan, a peer-to-peer lending with smart contracts, that has come up quite a bit on our Tuesday nights. There's also going to be some wining and dining and a few drinks afterwards. So I hope you guys can make time to join us this Sunday. I'm sorry it's short notice, but hopefully we can get some butts and seats. And I think it's going to be an awesome, awesome night. Really fantastic minds here in Bali ready to share with us what they've been up to. So save the date, put it in your calendar. I'll make an event later tonight, and let us know you're coming. All right, that's that. Let's talk about price. All right. We are in Indonesia, and in Indonesia, the largest Bitcoin exchange is bitcoin.co.id. And according to their VIP page here, one Bitcoin, the last trade was worth about 7.8 million rupiah. Right, one Bitcoin, 7.8 rupiah. Now, most of us are used to thinking in dollars, so let's take a look at the global average. $610.43 for one Bitcoin. One thing that's interesting here is, I don't know, can you guys see this? This is quite a long history of the Bitcoin price. And this is when the last spike we had back in late 2013, where we got up over $1,000. It's back here, that was late 2013. And we've been kind of on a downward correctional slope down here, and it seems like we've hit a bit of a bottom here. This was earlier this year, and the latter part of this year, if you were to draw a trend line from basically October of last year through this year, you can see there's quite a bit happening. Price seems to be on the uptick. So let's take a look at the price for the last week. This is our Bitcoin time machine. And although the price has been rising over the last 6 months, for the last week, it's been in an incredibly tight range between 609 and 603. This thing is, it's interesting because I've been watching the other altcoins, watching them go up and down. There's a lot of movement in certain coins, lots of new ideas making their presence known. We talked about Steemit recently. There's also Dash and Monero that have been moving around a lot lately. And Bitcoin just seems to be the rock. It just stays steady. It doesn't move very much. If we look at volatility in the last 30 days, we're approaching getting under 1% for a 30-day moving average. That's pretty amazing. We haven't seen that since last summer, right? again, here's the volatility over the lifetime of Bitcoin. You can definitely see that it's getting less and less volatile over time. Bitcoin being the granddaddy of all cryptocurrency, it's been around the longest. It's got the greatest network effects, and as it spreads through the entire economy, it should become incredibly steady in terms of its relational price to other currencies. So,
what's the correlation between gold and
you know what? There's a correlation here, if I can find it. Here's the 60-day, let's see, 30-day gold USD. So there's the volatility of gold, and here's the volatility of Bitcoin. So we've got a little ways to go before we can get down as low as gold. But you know, when Satoshi made Bitcoin, he wanted it to be gold-like. You know, you've got the whole mining metaphor and ultimate scarcity that is represented by the math inside of Bitcoin, but we're not quite there yet. One thing that's interesting about gold is its price is highly manipulated. In fact, it's been proven to be manipulated, and it's done with what they call paper gold, which are future contracts, basically paper representations of gold that never get paid out in actual gold. And there's something like 10 times as much notional gold as real gold. And because nobody actually takes delivery, or people rarely take actual delivery of their gold, the paper price pushes around the physical price. So people are, you know,
big funds
well, big funds are actually not, at least in the United States, are not allowed to buy physical gold. So they can only buy paper gold.
like hedge funds?
Yeah, but it's what they call exchange traded funds or gold derivatives, the gold futures market. This is how the price of gold is manipulated. And the reason that's interesting is they're trying to introduce exchange traded funds and derivatives to Bitcoin. So we're coming around full circle. The financial powers that be have recognized that Bitcoin is something to keep an eye on, and they have tried to introduce these old banking mechanisms like exchange traded funds onto Bitcoin. Now, my whole theory is that you don't need a receipt for Bitcoin. You can hold Bitcoin. There's no real carry cost like you have for gold. If you have gold, you have to buy a vault, right? You have to hire a security guard when you move it. There's like all kinds of hassle around owning gold. So it makes sense to have a gold receipt, right, or something that represents gold. But with Bitcoin, you don't need a proxy, right? You can have the real thing. All you need is a smartphone. If you have a smartphone, you've got your vault, and with a few, if you take care, then you can be the bank. And that's really the key to the financial freedom that Bitcoin promises. Is if you're able to hold your own Bitcoin, then all kinds of things go away, like the ability to manipulate the price with exchange traded funds, the ability to do fractional reserve lending and banking, the ability to create Bitcoin out of nothing. If we go to a fractional reserve system, if there's ever a system where you no longer hold your Bitcoin, you give it to a third party, that opens up the door for fractional reserve lending, and we're right back where we started from. So even though Satoshi is trying to get away from the gold, or trying to emulate gold, it looks like the powers that be are trying to grasp Bitcoin like they have grasped gold. So pay attention. The devil's in the details. All right, let's see. All right, that brings us to the meat of tonight's show. I'm going to play a little clip for you, and then we're going to try and relate what they say in this fictional story to real world, because the things that they're talking about in this scene, and it's a pretty gripping scene, are actually happening in real life. And well, let's just play it for you, and then we can talk about it. Sorry. That's hard to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we should.
Hold on.
Do you want to stop it and we'll put on the speakers?
Hold on a second. Yeah, I'll stop it, but I should be able to get a better volume out of this thing. Oh, what's the volume like? Oh, there we go. All right, let's try it again. Okay, Mr. Robot, take two.
Constitution, you can't make your own currency that is the federal government's job. We simply cannot let you make big loans in eCoin that you wouldn't make in dollars.
Jab. Look at me. I am not the problem here. The problem here is hard cash is fading rapidly. That's just the way of the world right now. And Bitcoin is spreading. And Bitcoin takes over. We are all in a world of hell. It is unregulated. It's already reached its transaction volume maximum, and it is partly controlled by Chinese miners.
You just accepted $2 trillion, right?
Yes, yes. And now I want to use it against them. At eCoin, we control the ledger and the mining servers. We are the authority. I will make sure you have visibility into every single wallet that's open, every loan, every transaction, which means we can start making new assets, which means we can start rebuilding the banking sector.
All right. Were you guys able to hear that?
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit tough. Art imitates life, or life imitates art. And what you've got in this scene is some sort of politician. I'm not totally caught up, but I can follow this. There's some sort of politician who's saying, you can't create money. That's the job of the federal government. And a banker who's saying, well, hold on a second. I'm not the bad guy. This Bitcoin thing is taking on a life of its own. And unless we get our own, what he's calling eCoin, which is like the banker coin, or the, what I like to call the permissioned ledger, or you could call it a database, which has been around for a long time. Yes, they're saying that Bitcoin is, I think the word he said, the phrase he used was, if Bitcoin takes off, we're all in a heap of trouble, or something like that. And it's true, Bitcoin removes some very important levers of power that politicians and bankers currently have. Right? They currently control the money supply, and they currently control the interest rate. And if you've got something like Bitcoin operating where they don't control the issuance, and they don't control the keys that allow the ledger to be updated, then they lose control of the ability to make money, and that is really what makes the world go around. It was that, I'll probably murder this quote, but I think it was one of the Rothschilds said, give me the power to create money and I care not who makes the laws, right? And we're, essentially Bitcoin is threatening the status quo by taking away their ability to create money. So, art imitates life. This is a fictional character creating eCoin. But in real life, we've got the battle between the permissioned and the unpermissioned blockchains, right? Check it out. The new battleground is permission versus unpermissioned blockchains, and how they couldn't be more different. So in the movie, you've got Bitcoin and eCoin, and that's really an open ledger and a permissioned ledger. Right? Bitcoin, it's not a coin that you walk around with. It's a ledger, right? When I have some Bitcoin and I want to give Deborah some Bitcoin, we just write in the ledger this Bitcoin that, oh, you ready? You want some? If I have one Bitcoin, we fix the ledger so that the Bitcoin that I used to own now belongs to Deborah, and the whole world knows about it, and you have the ability to spend that Bitcoin. So it's really just a ledger in the sky. It really is a database, if you will, but it's a shared database. It's a database that everybody can see, and only the people that have their key can write to the database, right? So if I have my Bitcoin wallet, it's got my Bitcoin keys there, and I can update the database by sending my Bitcoin to Deborah. I have the ability to update that big ledger in the sky. And well, the flip side of that, the control mechanism that they're talking about in the story is a permissioned ledger. So I won't be just telling the ledger that my Bitcoin is now belongs to Deborah. We've got to go tell a politician or go tell a bank that I would like to send my Bitcoin to Deborah, please. And they can say yes, say no, make it take a long time, take a little cut of it, censor me, censor Deborah. These are the things that we see happening today with, you don't need a blockchain to do those things. You just need a database, right? If you've got a permissioned ledger, you can, Oracle is very good at storing data and allowing people to update it. And only the people that are supposed to update it. And you don't need a blockchain if you've got a database. And if you're a bank, why not just use a database if you want to create permissions around it? So anyway, I'll put this link in the show notes, but this is a very good, well, actually, let me read it to you real quick. An unpermissioned ledger. Bitcoin is an unpermissioned blockchain. Anyone can submit a transaction and take part in validating the network. It's open to all. This is precisely what has made Bitcoin so groundbreaking. It allows the transfer of value to anyone, anywhere in the world, and has an internet connection, that has an internet connection. Outside of the control of banks or other payment processors, it ensures that no one owns the network. You give it to everyone. That's why the people who use Bitcoin trust it. They know a transaction, once executed, is effectively irreversible. Now let's compare that to a permissioned ledger. A permissioned blockchain, by contrast, allows only specified actors, banks, approved individuals, to submit transactions or validate the network. There is a control layer built into it. It's obvious why banks would want to go down this route. They need to comply with regulation, and using an unpermissioned blockchain would effectively make KYC, which is Know Your Customer, impossible. It would also make it impossible to reverse transactions. Right, so there's no calling up your bank and saying, this was a fraudulent transaction. You got to call the guy that you paid and work it out with them, or rely on some escrow service that you both agree on a priori. So you don't need these intermediaries, and creating this intermediary layer is what allows. I think it's at the root of many problems that we have within society today. It gives our personal power away and allows for all kinds of shenanigans like fractional reserve lending and interest rate and market manipulation to take place. All right, so that is the permission and unpermissioned ledger aspect of it. Here's another aspect of what we're talking about, and that is, anybody know who this guy is? Ken Rogoff. You guys ever hear of Harvard? It's a very prestigious school on the East Coast of the United States where they have all kinds of very smart people who tell us what we need to think, and oftentimes they let us know that the world around us is too complicated for us to evaluate ourselves, and we need experts to evaluate the world for us. And people like Ken Rogoff are very happy to do that. So they're really very happy to do our thinking for us. We don't really need to think for ourselves. He can tell us what to think. And he has a long history of being down on this thing we call cash. Cash is for criminals, for the deplorables, if you will, of our society. And we would all be better off if we didn't use cash. Right? He's got a new book out, The Curse of Cash, kind of an unambiguous title. I think we all know where he stands when it comes to cash. And he's promoting this book. There was an article in the New York Times. I posted this interview with him on, I think it's a German paper. But essentially, he talks about, the fact that cash is used for money laundering, that $100 bills are a very compact way of people to smuggle cash or pay large amounts in untraceable transactions. So if you want to buy arms, or if you want to have somebody knocked off, then you can use a suitcase full of $100 bills, and that's why we have to do away with cash. He goes on to say that, and this is a more subtle point, that if we get rid of cash, central banks will have much more ability to change interest rates or to effectively implement zero interest rate policy, or ZIRP, or negative interest rate policy, which is NIRP. right? And the Federal Reserve of the United States is in the business of setting interest rates, right? They decide what they'll loan to banks at, and then banks subsequently base all of their loans based on what they can borrow money from the Federal Reserve. So it's a very powerful, important function under the current regime that takes place, the manipulation of interest rates. And if we have no cash, if we have no ability to take cash out of the system, then if you've got $1,000 in your bank account, next year you might have $998 in your bank account. And the year after that, you could have $900 in your bank account, and there'd be no recourse. If you're forced to keep your money in the banking system, then they can implement any policies they want, right? They've got you by the short hairs, so to speak. And this is we're riding in the balance right now. This is we have a choice as a society. Do we want to give that power away? Do we want to always have banks holding the all of the stored favors that we've ever had in the world? We've worked our whole life and we've got all of this money. We've produced more than we've consumed over our entire life. Do we really want to give that over to a third party and have them dole that money back out to us and say, yes, you can use it for that. No, you can't use it for that. Yes, you can pay this person. No, you can't pay that person, etc. Do we want to give away that freedom?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Yes. Yes, we do. We do want to give that away.
But that's
Are you kidding?
The bartering system, like cash is everywhere. I've just bartered a painting for a taxi ride.
Really? Did you pay tax on that? Because you're
No.
supposed to.
No.
Should we call the Australian Tax Authority?
No, this is Bali.
Oh, okay.
So, that whole thing of exchange outside of the cash systems.
Oh, you're one of these deplorables, aren't you? You're one of these criminals that's just trying to do something awful.
No, I'm just clever and cheeky.
Well, barter, it's a little bit different than cash, but it's definitely taking off in a small way, like the way that you just mentioned. But actually, big corporations are doing this in order to avoid tax, right? They're using computer systems to keep track of what one company owes another company. Like, for example, I think.
Yeah. Very recent. We did that in my company, and we were sister companies.
Yeah.
We did it as well.
Yeah, it's definitely happening on a grand scale in the corporate world. Where I think I read a story that Tyson's Chicken bought a jet with like 250,000, roasted chickens. And if the companies can communicate and they do business together, if General Electric serves Tyson's Chicken in all of their factories or something, then they can make a deal. They can also make three-way deals, because the problem with barter is the coincidence of needs. If I'm a candle maker and you're a shoemaker, we can't transact unless you need candles or I need shoes. But if Daniel has cigarettes, then maybe we can create a three-way coincidence of needs that makes more sense. And you need information systems to make that a reality.
Well, we have a barter system in Australia where we can all barter into the system and pull funds out of it, and it's just like a bank account of energy. So you could provide services into that bartering system and then buy other services from someone else, as long as we're all in the system.
Okay.
From what I know, it's not.
So is there a well, Stephen's got a lot of experience with complementary currencies or time banks, community systems that do this kind of thing. In the one in Australia, is there a unit of account? Is there like a...
Yeah, they have a system, an online system, and it tells you exactly what your account is, and it shows you all the services that are available.
But do you have a balance of like 12 donuts, and
Yeah,
the other has a balance
totally.
of 35 candles? And
Yeah.
barter dollars.
Yeah.
And is there a unit of account? Like, is the barter dollar a unit of account? So I've got 100 barter dollars, and an hour of a doctor's time is worth so many barter dollars, and as opposed to an hour of like a masseuse's time.
Well, in our service, you just set your price of what you're selling, and then you sell their services, and you've got your credits, and then you can buy anything in the system, because it's a community of people. So we're all sharing with each other, and it's all managed through the database.
Yeah,
We
that's
have
slick.
regular gatherings, and
Yeah, I
from
love.
what I gather, it's not being really monitored by the tax office.
Those kinds of ideas are taking over. I mean, they're happening all over the world. It's really exciting.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's a neat thing, and especially when if the existing systems break down, it's those systems that could allow a small community to cooperate. And I really think that it's a part of community resilience. I think these things need to be in place. I mean, think about it. If the ATMs stop working, how do you get food? How do you operate if the existing system goes down? I've actually had people come to me and they here in Bali, you don't get your ATM card back until after you take the money. And it's different in Bali than in other places, and a lot of people consequently leave their card in the machine. And I've had more than one person come to me and say, oh, I'm not going to get my card back for 2 weeks, but I can still eat because I've got Bitcoin, and I can go around to all of the restaurants in Bali and still survive. So we're saving lives here. Isn't that exciting? Kismet is saving lives. And Seeds of Life. Anyway, I digress.
So
All right.
These kinds of conversations about, the end of cash put us as, I don't like labels, but as sort of anti-fiat people in a quite uncomfortable position, because we're put in a position where we have to defend fiat currency in order not to, we don't want to be in a situation where there's no cash either.
Right.
Because that will tip the balance in favor of, the authorities who can then regulate what we spend our money on. So
Yes. Well,
a little bit of
yes, we want digital currency, we want the technology, but we also want our cash. What do we really want?
We want it all.
We want it all, and I think we can get it all, because look at what Bitcoin was trying to be. Where is this? Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and it's cash in more ways than one. Right? Cash you can put in your pocket and it's yours and belongs to nobody else. Bitcoin, if it's used properly, can be the same way, right? It's cash, but there's no physical representation, but it doesn't belong to anybody else but you. If you've got your keys, you've got your Bitcoin, and you have all of the freedom that actual cash gives you without the carry costs, without the security risks. It's really an amazing thing that Bitcoin can be the 21st century's cash. Now, I don't know if we're going to get there or not, and I'm a little ahead of myself, but we can have it all. Bitcoin or something like it can be cash because it can belong to us. It can, we don't have to trust a third party. We can keep it on our own phone and stay away from the derivatives, from the fractional reserve banking. We can take the power back, essentially. We can create our own little economy, which is what we're trying to do.
In the meantime, we're kind of in this purgatory.
We are.
Widespread adoption of Bitcoin.
Yes, we are in the chicken and the egg.
We're in the position of having to defend the cash version of fiat
Yes.
currency.
Well, you've got these guys like Rogoff here, who is, it's obvious that cash is antiquated technology. I mean, I'm sure millennials are like, why do you have all that dirty cash? Where's the credit card? Right? We've already been programmed to use digital currency. This guy is trying to get us to get rid of our paper cash and replace it with bank money or deposit money. And we're trying to promote something that keeps our freedom intact, which is Bitcoin. This is an academic, and one of the things I want to bring to light is the role of academia in shaping our opinion. Did any of you guys see the movie, what was it, Inside Job? All right, well, I'm just going to remind you, let's watch this little clip here of the role of academia in shaping our opinion about things. Check it out.
Does Harvard require disclosures of potential conflict of interest in publications?
No, to my knowledge.
Do you require people to report the compensation they've received from outside activities? Don't you think that's a problem?
I see why.
Martin Feldstein being on the board of AIG, Laura Tyson going on the board of Morgan Stanley, Larry Summers making $10 million a year consulting to financial services firms. Irrelevant.
Yeah, basically irrelevant.
You've written a very large number of articles about a very wide array of subjects. You never saw fit to investigate the risks of unregulated credit default swaps?
I never did.
Same question with regard to executive compensation, the regulation of corporate governance, the effect of political contributions.
I don't know that I would have anything to add to those discussions.
I'm looking at your resume now. It looks to me as if the majority of your outside activities are consulting and directorship arrangements with the financial services industry. Would you not agree with that characterization?
No, to my knowledge, I don't think my consulting clients are even on my CV. So,
who are your consulting clients?
I don't believe I have to discuss that with you.
Okay.
In fact, you have a few more minutes and the interview's over.
Do you consult for any financial services firms?
The answer is I do.
And
I do not want to go into details about that.
Do they include other financial services firms?
Awesome.
You don't remember?
This guy's from Harvard, just like
This isn't a
Rogoff.
deposition, sir. I was polite enough to give you time. Foolishly, I'll say. You have 3 more minutes. Give it your best shot.
In 2004, at the height of the bubble, Glenn Hubbard co-authored a widely read paper with William C. Dudley, the chief economist of Goldman Sachs. In the paper, Hubbard praised credit derivatives and the securitization chain, stating that they had improved allocation of capital and were enhancing financial stability. He cited reduced volatility in the economy and stated that recessions had become less frequent and milder. Credit derivatives were protecting banks against losses and helping to distribute risk.
A medical researcher writes an article saying, to treat this disease, you should prescribe this drug. Turns out, doctor makes 80% of personal income from manufacture of this drug. Does not bother you.
I think it's certainly important to disclose well, I think that's also a little different from cases that we're talking about here because
Fascinating, huh? So you've got, that's from. I keep wanting to say The Big Short, but it's Inside Job. And to my knowledge, nothing has changed. It makes you wonder what consulting clients this guy Rogoff might have. But there's definitely an agenda here. Some might call it propaganda. It's a point of view that he's pushing around cash, and it just so happens to suit the incumbent powers to get rid of cash, especially because our interest rates are at 0, right? They have been since 2008. Have you guys seen this little graph? Sometimes I throw up here the red line.
Sorry, Gary, your interest rates are at 0.
Ah, yes, you're from Australia. Wait, what else matters besides America? I mean, I can't be, distracted by the details here. Yeah, I'm sorry. Point well taken. Thank you, Deborah. In the States, the cost of borrowing money is 0. You can see that red line. That's back in 1992. We were up, around 4, 5, 6%. And there's a steady decline. Actually, that decline goes all the way back to, I think, the 80s. You can see interest rates going down and down and down. And since 2008, that red line is right bumping along on 0, right? For the last 8 years, we have artificially held interest rates at 0, right? This is a gross deformation of the cost of money. And it creates all kinds of deformations in the real world, right? If you are going to build a skyscraper and you can borrow money at 1%, maybe the deal makes sense. If you can borrow money at 4%, maybe the deal no longer makes sense. This is how the world communicates their needs, their relative needs. And when interest rates are down at next to zero for 8+ years, that's a problem. And it's not enough. They want to go below zero. It hasn't helped. And so they want to get rid of cash because that is the only obstruction for people actually, for the banks to actually take us below zero. Right? Once they have all of our money locked up in a banking system that they control, then they can say, hey, by the way, your savings account is going to be, we got a yearly fee, and it's 2%. And every year you're going to lose 2% of the value. So from their point of view, they're encouraging you to spend, right? They know better than you do on if you should be spending money or not. More importantly, they know better than my mother, who's on a fixed income, who has saved her whole life, has a nut. She's not earning money anymore. She's got what she's got, and that's got to last her for the rest of her life. And these guys, the Fed, think it's okay to just come along and say, well, you're not going to make any money on your savings, little old lady. And by the way, this other line on the graph is money printing, or QE. So they've quadrupled the money supply in that same time. So you can see this is the financial crisis. The money supply has gone through the roof, and the interest rate has gone down to zero. You get rid of cash, and you can even go below zero. I think the banks have lost credibility when it comes to money printing and the ability of money printing to pull us out of a recession. And now on Wednesday, Janet Yellen is going to have her meeting, actually meeting, I think as we speak, it's a 2-day meeting, and they're going to decide if they're going to raise interest rates or not on Wednesday. And well, all the pundits are saying no. What I think I have one here. The Fed won't raise rates on Wednesday. Jeff Gundlach, CEO of Double Line Funds, thinks the Federal Reserve will be on hold in September. Gundlach told Reuters that he does not think the Fed will raise rates on Wednesday when they conclude their 2-day meeting of the FOMC, the Federal Open Markets Committee. So there's all this punditry going on around whether or not they're going to raise rates. They're not going to raise rates. I mean, they're looking for ways so they can take rates below zero. They're already doing this in Europe and in Japan. And
how do they take them below zero? What's that mean? Like
that means,
borrow money?
Yes, that means you loan me money, and then in a year I give you less than what you loan me.
That doesn't make it very motivating to lend money.
It's motivating unless you think you're going to lose more elsewhere. So let's say that the bank's going to charge you 2%, but I say, give me your money, and next year I'll give you only -1%. This is the kind of control I believe they're going after. And if you cannot hold your money yourself, then they have the ability to say, hey, by the way, this is your bank. Here's a little bit of fine print that we're sending you via email, and you're probably not even reading this right now. But next year, you're going to have 2% less than you have right now. Because actually, your deposits with the bank is essentially a loan to the bank, right? You're loaning money to the bank, and they're paying you interest while they're talking about negative interest. So for the privilege of them holding your money, they're going to charge you some percentage, and that's how you get into negative rates.
It could become even higher than that. Like Irving Fisher in the 1930s during the Great Depression, when he was one of the first economists to propose demurrage or negative interest rates, he was thinking more like 12 to 24 per year.
Yeah. There's no reason why
a year lost isn't going to motivate people to invest in infrastructure or in property, which would give them a more natural return.
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, we should turn on the gas and really shock people into investing.
Yeah. This is the central control worldview of global finance, right? They think that if people aren't spending enough, they need a kick in the rear to make the right choice, right? But as I've described already, this distorts all kinds of things. It really robs money of its ability to communicate the relative needs of everyone, right? If there's a short of apples, but the price doesn't go up, then next year we produce even fewer apples, and there's a shortage. You can't set the price on something like money because it distorts the price of everything else and really yeah, it's hard to operate, hard to plan, hard to make decisions. And that's the world we live in, right? And that's really the world, I think, that, you know, in the opening scene from Mr. Robot, it's the banker who wants to maintain that control, right? Maintain that control over the ability to increase the money supply, maintain that control over the ability to keep the interest rates low. If you have an open ledger, you can't do that because everybody can see what you're doing, right? Or you have to change the math, which the consensus won't allow, right? This is very dangerous to central planner types. And it is having it all. It is the future cash, right? And that's what Satoshi, you know, remember 2008 is when we had the problem. Where am I here? Right, 2008 is when we had the problem, right? Satoshi was very clued in. I forget, I think in his first Bitcoin transaction, he had a headline that alluded to the banking crisis, right? So this is a direct result of the banking shenanigans from the previous 30 years. And peer-to-peer electronic cash is what he was going for. There's been a lot of subsequent discussions around what he was really trying to do, like, and what Bitcoin should be. Maybe it should be just a settlement system. You know, maybe it wasn't meant for day-to-day transactions. But I think that he really had cash in mind. He wouldn't have used the word cash if he didn't have that in mind. But Bitcoin, maybe it won't end up being cash. But we need something like that. And I just wanted to bring to mind that there are other currencies that have watched Bitcoin and are thinking about doing things in a different way, right? So that a cryptocurrency can maintain those cash-like aspects, right? And those coins are things like Dash, right, which is trying to solve both the transaction clearing time and the anonymity, which is related to fungibility. If cash is going to be truly cash, it needs to be anonymous. Because as soon as you can trace a unit of account, you can censor it. So you could, you know, the United States government could say any Bitcoin that was once on the Silk Road exchange is no longer valid, right? Or if you accept a coin from the that used to belong to Ross Ulbricht, then you're breaking the law. Right, so the anonymity has got to be there in order for the coin to be useful as cash. Right, if there's censorship, then it ceases to circulate as cash, because if every time somebody pays you, you have to check against a database of all kinds of people and institutions, and this government bans this institution and that government bans that institution. Suddenly you have the cash loses its utility because you've got too many checks to figure out if you can actually accept this person's payment. So the fungibility, which is a key component of any money, is there only with anonymity, and that's what these next coins, I don't have time to go into all of them, I just wanted to bring them to your attention. That's probably why these coins have gained in popularity, because they're addressing this. Where Bitcoin falls short in terms of cash, these guys are picking up the ticket. Dash stands for digital cash. That's what they're trying to do. You've also got Monero, which is trying to address the fungibility and the anonymity of the coin. And this is all the rage on the message boards. I don't know if it's legit or not, but coming up October 28th, they're going to release this Zcash, which is also an anonymity coin. Maybe something to keep an eye on. But if you look at the coin market cap, you've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, of course, but there's Monero, number 5, $134 million of value tied up in Monero. Not far down is Dash. So these things are filling some sort of a market niche within the crypto coin area and deserve a little bit of attention. Last but not least, there's an interesting legal precedent for preserving the fungibility of cash. There is this case from the 1700s, Crawford versus the Royal Bank, and I won't get into too many details, but there was some sort of large robbery, right? And the robbery was of some money that was actually traceable, but they didn't recover it until years later, and it belonged to somebody that had nothing to do with the original robbery. And the case, the what was posited by the case was, does the bank that originally had the funds stolen, can they seize those funds because those once belonged to them and was stolen? And the court case decided that no, the bank did not have the ability to seize those funds, because if you set that precedent, then money would cease to work, because everybody would have to check, did this dollar bill that I have in my hand, did it once belong to a criminal? Was it once involved in some sort of unsavory transaction that the state does not like? I have to double check every coin that's handed to me. That doesn't work. And that's what this case decided, and it's a landmark case in terms of establishing what money needs to have in order to be of value, in order to work as money. So I'll put that also in the show notes. All right. So we're just about at the end of time. What I try to do is link this Mr. Robot thing, because this Mr. Robot has the evil banker, and they're talking about suppressing Bitcoin. And hopefully, we tried to paint a picture of how that's happening in the real world. That's what makes this show so compelling, because they're saying, oh, we'll show you what happens behind closed doors. Perhaps this kind of thing these conversations actually do happen like this, because the stakes are high and people stand to gain or lose based on what happens. So you can imagine, even if we can't be in an actual boardroom, but we can be in a fictionalized boardroom, and because they stick to the facts, they stick to the things that could possibly happen, it's incredibly intriguing. So this is supposed to happen in season 3, right? Is that how it's supposed to unfold, the Bitcoin plot line?
Yeah.
Okay, I've only gotten most of the way through season 1, so we'll have to watch that with interest, tune in, maybe do a little binge watching. All right, well, that's all I've got for you today, guys. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel. All of our episodes go right up on YouTube after we conclude the session. So check out our YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And don't forget about our Facebook group. Join us on Facebook. Post all of your stories. Let us know what you think in the Bitcoin world. If it has anything to do with Bitcoin or anything to do with Bali, please post it here. Also, we've got Bitcoin 101 coming up this Saturday. Send us your friends, and keep your eyes peeled on Sunday night. This coming Sunday night, we're going to have a great event with the folks from Consensus. Anyway, thanks for coming tonight, guys. We'll see you again, same time, same channel next Tuesday, just like every Tuesday, right here at Hubud. We'll see you then. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you. Yay!